It was a hectic Friday morning at JFK Airport. Gate 32, buzzed with travelers rushing to catch Flight 287 to Dallas. Among them sat Devin Mitchell, mid-30s, sharply dressed, calm as ever in seat 14B. But Devin wasn't just any passenger. He was an FBI special agent, part of the counterterrorism division, carrying a secret mission no one could see. That's when Sharon Vance, a blonde woman in her late 40s, stopped right in front of him. Her voice cut through the cabin. "Get him off this plane," she demanded, eyes blazing with suspicion. She claimed Devin's behavior was suspicious, though all he'd done was quietly read his book. Passengers stared. Flight attendants hesitated. Devin felt the weight of a false accusation, a charge born from fear and racial bias, not facts. Then Devin did something no one expected. Hidden badge revealed. Power shift stuns cabin. Slowly, he pulled out his worn FBI badge and federal ID, revealing his true authority. The cabin fell silent. The woman who tried to label him a threat was left speechless. What happens next exposes the raw power of prejudice and the quiet dignity of a man who holds justice in his hands. Stay with us to see how this confrontation unfolds and what it reveals about trust, fear, and respect in today's world. Subscribe to Real Life Stories New. Don't miss this unforgettable story. The jet bridge hummed with a low murmur of engines as Devin Mitchell stepped forward, his footsteps steady against the thin carpet. The air outside the cabin felt different, denser, colder, thick with unspoken accusation. Two uniformed security officers waited just beyond the door, eyes scanning Devin with a mixture of caution and apology. One officer, a heavy-set man with dark circles under his eyes, cleared his throat. "Sir, if you could just answer a few questions. There's been a report." The words hung awkwardly, the implication obvious to everyone except perhaps Sharon, whose pointed glare still burned from inside the plane. Jet bridge showdown. Truth faces false fear. Devin met the officer's gaze without flinching. "You want to know if I belong here?" he replied quietly, his voice low but resolute. The second officer, younger and visibly uneasy, shuffled his feet. "Just standard procedure, sir. Can you tell us your name and why you're traveling?" A brief silence. Devin reached into his inner jacket pocket, the movement slow and deliberate. He produced his FBI badge, the gold glinting beneath the fluorescent lights. "Special Agent Devin Mitchell, Counterterrorism Division. I'm en route to a federal briefing in Dallas. Now, are we done?" The air in the jet bridge shifted. The older officer blinked, suddenly more respectful. "Agent Mitchell, we're very sorry for the inconvenience. Please let us escort you back." His tone carried both relief and shame. As they returned to the cabin, every eye followed. Devin's stride was unbroken, but inside his thoughts churned a storm of exhaustion and hard-earned composure. This was not the first time he'd been doubted. It would not be the last. Back in row 14, Sharon Vance sat stone still, her knuckles white against the handle of her purse. Passengers craned their necks, whispers flaring like sparks across the cabin. Flight attendants' bold call-out shocks accuse her. The lead flight attendant, a woman with a clipped British accent, stepped into the aisle and addressed Sharon directly, her voice measured but unyielding. "Ma'am, you've accused a federal agent based solely on discomfort. That is not grounds for removal, nor will it be tolerated on this flight." Sharon's jaw tensed. "I didn't know who he was. He acted suspicious. I was just trying to be safe." Devin slid back into his seat, eyes forward, silent. The air between them pulsed with unspoken tension. A young girl in the row ahead twisted in her seat, peering at Devin. Her father, a broad-shouldered man in a business suit, met Devin's eyes and gave a subtle nod of solidarity. Across the aisle, a flight attendant whispered to her colleague, "People need to check their prejudice at the door." The flight resumed, but the tension lingered, seeping into the smallest spaces. A cough, a shoe scuff, the rattle of the drink cart. Devin tried to read his novel, but felt the weight of every glance, every whispered conversation. Agent's quiet words cut through prejudice. He pressed his thumb into the corner of the page, holding back a lifetime's worth of practiced patience. As the plane leveled out above the clouds, Sharon fidgeted. She finally broke the silence. "Why didn't you just say who you were?" Devin didn't turn. His voice was even, "Because I shouldn't have to prove my worth to sit in my own seat." Sharon's face flushed with frustration, but there was a tremor in her hands now. "Fear or shame, or both. You don't understand. The world isn't safe." He looked at her then, tired eyes meeting hers. "It's less safe when we let fear decide who's a threat." For a moment she looked away, lips pressed tight. Mid-flight, the captain made his way down the aisle, stopping at their row. His presence was calm, authoritative. "Ma'am, your accusations delayed a federal investigation and nearly jeopardized the safety of this flight. I need you to understand the gravity of your actions." Sharon stammered, "I didn't mean for it to go this far." "You didn't think at all," the captain replied quietly before moving on. The words hung in the air, stinging sharper than any reprimand. Captain's stern warning rocks tense flight. Outside, the sun burned bright on the wing, casting light into the cabin's tense corners. Devin closed his eyes, exhaled, and forced himself to find the smallest pocket of peace. 2 rows back, a young black boy watched Devin with wide, curious eyes. He tugged at his mother's sleeve, whispering, "Is he a real agent?" His mother smiled softly. "Yes, and he's showing everyone here what it means to be brave." Devin overheard, just barely, and something in his chest eased. It wasn't triumph, but it was something. The hours stretched on. Sharon remained silent, glued to her window, while Devin found himself drifting between exhaustion and memory. Of other times, other places, when being seen was a threat and invisibility was the only shield. Suddenly, turbulence rocked the plane. Drinks splashed, seatbelts clicked tighter. The anxiety in the cabin spiked, but Devin's steady presence became an anchor for those around him. The lead flight attendant, recognizing his calm, quietly nodded her thanks. After the turbulence passed, a teenage boy approached, voice hesitant. "Agent Mitchell, sir. Sorry about what happened. People can be, some of us appreciate what you do." Teen's brave apology sparks hope midair. Devin nodded, a small smile breaking his reserve. "Thank you. Just do your part. That's how things change." The plane began its descent. The city lights of Dallas shimmered below, a vast network of hope and history. As they prepared to land, the captain's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. And a special thanks to those among us who keep us safe, even when it's hardest." Sharon's eyes filled with tears. Not rage, but something softer, quieter. Regret. As the wheels touched down, applause broke out in the rear of the cabin. Not for the landing, but for the lesson. A rare, real moment when dignity outshined ignorance. The moment of reckoning came quickly. Police escort signals justice's arrival. As the plane rolled to a stop, 2 uniformed airport police entered the cabin and approached Sharon. "Ma'am, we need to speak with you," one said, his tone formal but clear. "Your report caused a federal disruption, and you will need to provide a statement." Sharon's voice was small, but the officer didn't budge. "This is procedure that you'll be escorted from the aircraft." Devin watched silent as Sharon gathered her belongings with shaking hands. Every passenger saw, every passenger remembered. Her power had melted into consequence. As she was led down the aisle, Devin met her gaze for the briefest moment. A silent, unspoken message. This was justice, not revenge. This was the world, for once, turned the right way up. Devin stood, straightened his jacket, and picked up his briefcase. A ripple of respect followed him. Nods, quiet thank yous, a few handshakes. Dignity triumphs as Agent steps into light. He felt the exhaustion deep in his bones, but also a steady, glowing pride. As he stepped into the sunlight outside, he heard the young boy's voice behind him. "Mom, that's the man who stood up for himself. Maybe someday I can too." Devin smiled just a little. For every injustice he faced, there was now a moment like this, where the truth outlasted the lie, and dignity walked off the plane a little taller. As Devin left the aircraft, the sunlight poured across the tarmac, warm and unwavering. Nothing like the cold stares he'd faced an hour before. For a brief moment, he paused at the bottom of the stairs, feeling the quiet weight of a battle fought with dignity, not rage. Sharon's silhouette lingered in the doorway above, now small and alone. The judgment she'd cast returned to her by the world around them. Inside the terminal, Devon caught his reflection in a pane of glass. He didn't see a victim or even a hero, just a man who refused to be defined by someone else's fear. Around him, travelers moved on, but a little boy's eyes followed, wide with newfound respect. It was there, in that silent exchange, that Devon understood real change begins in moments both public and unseen. The lesson was never about winning or shaming someone. It was about showing the courage to stay true when the world demands you shrink. Silent courage inspires a new generation, because sometimes the quietest acts, standing your ground, speaking your truth, can echo far beyond a single flight. If this story moved you, help us share it. Like, comment, and subscribe. Every share helps remind the world that courage and justice can, and must, rise above hate.